Hi, I'm Jill Ferris, and this is Cooking for Bachelors. It's Hanukkah, but you don't have to be Jewish to love latkes. I'm just going to finish grating some of the last few potatoes I had, and I've left the skins on. I'm using my Cuisinart food processor, and there's a great potato peeler feature. Okay, there we go, and I have onions and potatoes in here. Okay. Now what I've done is I'm going to do sweet potatoes. Ooh, there's an awful lot. Okay, let me just set this aside. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put in a couple of ingredients. There's already onions in here, so I'm going to use some scallions in the sweet potatoes. It's going to be like a sweet/savory dish. I'm also going to put some jalapenos in. Now, I love latkes. I mean, it's great. I mean, everybody loves potatoes in one form or another, but this is great. And also what I love is that you can use it in other meals. And what we're going to do is we're going to make some latkes, but then we're going to show you how you can use it for eggs Benedict instead of bread, and making some hors d'oeuvres. I'm going to cut the jalapeno, take the seeds out, and we're just going to use the skin, very thin slices, and it will be just the perfect amount of heat to contrast the sweetness of the potatoes. Scallions and jalapenos in our sweet potatoes. You're going to have to peel the sweet potatoes, but you don't have to peel the white potatoes. Now what we're going to add is some matzah meal. Now this is made of matzah. It usually is in the kosher section of any supermarket, and you can also use flour or whole wheat flour. If you're using whole wheat flour, you're going to use a little bit less than regular flour. How much, again, this is eyeing it, and again, you have to feel it. So I'll show you there. What is maybe about half a cup is what it looks like. And then you're going to add some eggs. You add as much according to how much you have. We're going to mush this with our hands so you'll feel it. So we're going to start with this one. And I'm feeling that it's a little dry, so I'm going to add another egg. But you don't want it too mushy. We have our oil already heating, so these are going to be fried. But you want it to hold together. Now, if you're working with potatoes and you're cutting them up in advance, potatoes discolor very quickly. So you want to set them in a bowl of water if you're waiting as you're using them. When it's Hanukkah time, I usually make pounds and pounds of potatoes because my family likes to come over and eat them, and they eat a lot. But then again, it's my cooking, so of course they eat a lot. All right, I'm just going to add a little bit more of the matzah meal. Okay, now we're going to move over to the white potato and do the same thing. Remember, there's onions in here. We threw some onions in the grater as well. And I'm going to add another egg to this. I like working with my hands when I'm working with food. I think most of all because you can really feel the food that way. You can feel the texture of it. If you use a spoon, you can't feel if it's dry or it's wet or what's happening. All right, we're going to salt and pepper both of them. Fresh ground pepper, my favorite ingredient. My pepper mill doesn't make it really fine. I like it chunky, and I love biting into the pieces of pepper whenever I'm eating. I think this consistency is really perfect. It's going to hold together nicely. If you're making a large amount, you have to handle it with care because sometimes the potatoes start bleeding or they become very wet and gooey and drippy. So you have to be careful that you move quickly when you're working with this. Okay, we mix that up. We mix this up. I like the consistencies of both of them. So we're going to take the bowls. We're going to move over to our oil, which is already heating, and start frying. Okay, so we're over here by our hot oil, and what we're going to do is we're going to make these latkes or pancakes. And you just pick up and you just flatten it out. You pick up a handful and flatten it out. Place it in your oil, nice, very nice. We're going to make some large ones, we'll make some small ones that we can use for many purposes. Very good. By the way, this Hanukkah or menorah over here is actually from my childhood. I have all sorts of nostalgic things here. My mother's pan, my first menorah. So we'll do half and half. So we have 2 larger ones and 2 smaller ones. I can't wait to taste these with the sweet potatoes and the jalapenos. I think this is going to be great. And I think this could be a great accompaniment for any kind of food. I mean, this would be great for a barbecue chicken or a pot roast. All right, this is nice. Yum. The sweet potatoes are a little denser, so they might take a little longer to cook. So you should be aware of that if you're cooking them all together. And you want to try to make it as flat as possible because it is a raw potato. So it does take, even though it's in shreds, it does take a while to cook. And you notice today that I'm using this burner in front. And this burner is made by a company called Keystone Manufacturing. And this is called the Denny Triple Burner. You want to make sure that they're brown around the edges before you turn them over. Well, I just turn them over and just look how beautiful they are. Look at this nice brown, crisp. So you pat them a little just to flatten them so that the cooking goes through. You have to cook it long enough. This is not just browning it. Remember, this is a potato. So the slow cooking, it's really going at a nice pace here, you see. It's bubbling, but it's not splashing, and that's exactly what you want in your oil. Looks like our latkes are done, really perfect. So what you want to do is you take them out and put them on some paper towels to absorb the oil, just like anything else that you fry. This is great. Oh, these are wonderful. Nice and crisp, perfectly cooked. And our eggs is just about ready. So we're going to plate our dish, and I'll show you how to do the eggs Benedict and some hors d'oeuvres. Okay, so here we are. We have 2 potato latkes and 2 each of the sweet potato and the white potato. Now I'm going to take some smoked salmon. Now you can buy this fresh, but I'm using my package intentionally to show you that this comes packaged in most supermarkets. And we're making the alternative, instead of using an English muffin, which most eggs Benedict use, we're going to use the potato pancakes instead of bread. It's going to make it very wholesome, and you don't have to eat the bread that way. And if it happens to be Passover, it's very convenient. I'm going to go and get my eggs. Use a slotted spoon. Make sure you drain them well. And just place them one on each. Make sure it's nice and drained. Put a little cracked pepper on it. Nice, very nice. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to cut up some chives in small pieces. This is what chive looks like when it's fresh. Cut up tiny little pieces. We're going to put a little dollop of sour cream on each of our smaller latkes. Now this is whole milk sour cream. And I like to use the whole milk. Actually, you can use a low fat. But a lot of dairy products that are low fat actually have more sugar content. So since it's so little, why don't you just treat yourself? Or you can also use yogurt. You could use Greek yogurt. You could use sheep cheese or goat yogurt. Here we go. And we're going to place a little bit of salmon caviar on them. Now, you have to be very careful when you're working with caviar because you don't want to break the eggs. So you just put a little tiny bit, very gently, very small spoon. Actually, caviar uses a lot of times a spoon made out of a shell. Keep it in the sea. All right, there we go. Isn't that lovely? Wow. No, all we did, it's like 2 jars. We made the latkes, 2 jars. That's really easy. And we're just going to take our chives, and we're going to sprinkle it. That's going to just add a little bit of fresh bite. I'm going to put it on here too. Now, let's see what it tastes like. Oh, that's wild. There's a sweetness. Do I have cream on my lip? There's a sweetness. You have the jalapenos inside, the fresh cream. This is a way to impress your guests. Very easy. Have fun.